This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media and the Rule Classroom, sponsors of the 2025 Rule Natural Resources Investment Symposium in Boca Raton, Florida, July 7 through 11, or via live stream in the comfort and convenience of your own home. However you choose to attend, understand that we're going to give you between 50 and 55 hours of programming in 4 days, more than you can possibly absorb. To that end, two things. We're interviewing every exhibitor and every speaker before the conference so that you can familiarize yourself with the subjects that will be covered at the conference and allocate your time more efficiently. It is important that you segregate. It is important that you reach out to companies, if possible, even before the conference, as I say, so that you can allocate your time and your capital more efficiently. Further to that end, recordings of the conference will be available for a full year after the conference, and discussion groups around subjects of interest to you will be held at the Rule Classroom. So this conference, although it takes place over 4 days, will absorb a year, will give you the advantage to go deeply into the topics for a year. Further to that end, every single public company exhibitor at the conference has been vetted, unlike other investment conferences. Specifically, the shares of the public companies that are exhibiting are held in the accounts of the conference sponsors. While this might strike some as a conflict of interest, that is your guarantee that at our conference, unlike any other investment conference on the planet, every single exhibitor has been vetted. Very important thing for you to understand. So we're going to begin the process. Today, I have the good fortune of interviewing a man I've known for the better part of 2 decades. I have been a shareholder of his since the inception of his company. His name is Paddy Nicol. Paddy, welcome. Thank you for
Thanks,
your
Rick.
efforts on behalf of shareholders. Thank you in particular for the most recent transaction, which we'll talk about. And thank you
Yes,
for your
thank you.
sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Tell me something about your background, Paddy. Tell me where you came from, what you've done, what your expertise is. Tell me in rude terms why people should care about the answers you're going to give me to my nosy questions.
Well, no, thanks, Rick. Look, I think I've been in the business now for well over 30 years, and known you for a big chunk of that time. And the first part of my career was spent in drilling a lot of projects, coming up against a lot of frustrations. As you know, in our business, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of misses along the way when you're drilling single asset with a single asset focus in mind. In 2009, I decided to leave all that behind and start to focus on the prospect generator side of the business. And I think that's where we got to know each other a whole lot more. And so we floated the Ever Resources, as you recall, back in 2010, 2011, and grew that company over a period of time. And it's gone through a merger at one point along the way. We've made some discoveries in some of the projects, and the prospect generator model, as you know, Rick, it's a patient business model. It takes some time to develop your project portfolio. It takes time to establish your partnerships. But when you focus on the discipline of that model, it can pay in ways that, well, you've seen the transaction that we've just gone through. And so our company has made two discoveries in its time. One through the Ermitaño mine, which was it's a First Majestic mine. It's in production now. We are a cash flowing royalty. And then the more recent discovery was the expanded Silicon royalty, which you're aware of and has grown tremendously over the past 5 years, and now has resulted in a very nice transaction between Orogen and Triple Flag, whereby Orogen is being acquired by Triple Flag for $421 million Canadian.
So I would urge viewers here to look at both the prospect generator sequence at the Rule Classroom and also the royalty and streaming sequence. Orogen is a sort of a hybrid prospect generator, or one could say a royalty generator, and also a royalty company. You can learn more about how to ask Paddy questions by referring to those two segments at the Rule Classroom. Paddy, let's go back to Evrim and Renaissance. Let's talk about the process that led to the generation of both Ermitaño and
Silicon. Yeah, precisely. No,
Let's talk particularly about how much of your own money you had to spend to generate a royalty that you sold for $400 million.
So the business that we employ, the model that we employ is really early stage exploration. It's sort of the kernel of thought. It's the tip of the spear when it comes to generative exploration. And so the risk at that stage is very high. Most of the things that you look at don't ever make it. But your investment into those projects is quite nominal. And so in the case of Ermitaño and also with Silicon, our investment is around $150,000 per project. And so we generate targets. We don't drill targets, we generate targets, and we try to show the best aspects of that project. And then we try to bring in an exploration partner. They take on the heavy lifting of the additional exploration, the drilling, and then if it becomes something significant, it goes on into development and becomes hopefully a mine. And so in the case of Ermitaño, that was done in 2016. Discovery was made. First Majestic, they had the project at that stage and they carried it all the way to production. What we get out of selling those projects can be a range of things, but typically it's cash payments, share payments, and we always retain the royalty. The royalty is your single biggest leverage to value creation in the deal. And so we've done that very well with our Ermitaño. And then at the same time, the Renaissance side, who we merged with in 2020, had done a similar thing with the Silicon target in Nevada. And so it was an early stage process. They had gone out and staked the ground. I mean, this is lands that we go out and acquire on our own. We don't do third-party deals, and we're not buying typically from vendors. We actually stake this ground ourselves. And so their investment, similarly, about $150,000. Project for Silicon sat for a couple of years while they were trying to find a partner. It wasn't the best time in the market, 15, 16 type of thing. You know what it was like back then. But they did find AngloGold Ashanti, and by the time 2017 came around, they made the initial discovery, and it has grown from, well, it was from nothing to now it stands at over 16 million ounces, and that's the subject of the transaction. So in both cases, our investments into these projects is very nominal, but the leverage to value creation is quite significant.
So let's do the math again, uh, just so that our audience understands the magnitude of that arithmetic. At Silicon, about $150,000 was spent, and the royalty was ultimately sold, admittedly after 9 years, not too long to wait, for $400 million. That seems too good to be true because it is. How many projects would you say that Orogen and Renaissance, or Evrim and Renaissance, now Orogen,
Yes.
went through using other people's money and nominal investments in order to have two successes? What did the funnel
You,
look like?
you go through a lot. I mean, it's a big funnel, right? The early stage stuff, I bet you we go through on a very nominal basis, probably 20 to 30 projects a year. Only maybe 2 to 3 of those actually become projects that we want to stand behind and try to market to the public. So you think about that over sort of a 15-year period. It's a lot of properties that you go through. And so the funnel is wide until you get to that sweet spot. But again, your investments into these things are nominal. In a lot of cases, as you rightly point out, some of the generative work we've done over the past number of years has actually been with partner funded money. We do partnerships with majors as well and try to generate projects. In the case of Ermitaño or in Silicon, we actually did it on our own, which makes it even more sweet because we got a bigger piece of the upside as the projects develop.
And I think it's worthwhile noting, Patty, that of the 3 or 4 projects a year that you keep and market, often you generate cash from conducting exploration programs, or when you sell them, in addition to a royalty, you get a cash payment, or you get shares. Uh, it should be pointed out that often Origin has been cash flow positive without royalty payments. So could you talk a little bit about that, getting paid to
Yeah,
explore?
our business model is unique in that way. We really focused on not only providing high quality projects, but we also focus on the business end. And we try to generate royalties or generate our projects at either a net zero or negative cost, in that we're making money. And so the project generation side, still the projects are kind of on a $150,000 to $200,000 a year. We're trying to sell projects for about between $250,000 to $450,000. So every project that we're trying to create is actually making us money, not a ton of money, but we're not depleting the treasury. We don't have to go back to the market to raise money time and time again to keep the treasury up. We were actually doing fine on our own. And now that we have royalty revenue, it just adds to it. And so our annual, last year we did close to $10 million of revenue. We did about $8 million of royalty revenue. We did close to $2 million of prospect generator revenue. And so, we have not raised money since 2018. The treasury is very good. It's in excess of $20 million. And so we're on sort of a treadmill where we can continue to generate projects. We're not losing money as a result of that. And we're providing all these opportunities for exploration discovery and hopefully a new royalty revenue model that might on a profile that might come in the future.
So let's look at the transaction that you just did with Triple Flag and use that as sort of a template for success. What happened? You had a 1%, a 1.5% royalty over part of the project?
Yeah, we had a 1% NSR on silicon, and that is such a unique discovery in Nevada. I mean, there's been lots of discoveries in Nevada, but the scale and size of this one and the potential is tremendous. And so it became a focal point for a lot of the larger royalty companies. And so we were able to transact on that. And the way that we did it was we transacted it on a corporate level. And so ultimately sold the royalty to Triple Flag Precious Metals for $2 Canadian a share. And of that amount, $1.63 is fully attributable to the silicon royalty. So that's about 343 million Canadian. So shareholders can elect to get some cash or shares in Triple Flag. That's at their election. They will also get a new share in a new spin-out company called Orogen as well. We're going to keep the name, which is good from a branding perspective. And so of the $2, 37 cents will be attributable to SpinCo. And the nice thing about SpinCo, it is all the other assets, Ermitaño included, which I think is really important for SpinCo because it'll provide that tremendous stability as it did in the existing company. It has all the emerging royalties that we've got today in the portfolio, the projects, and the cash. And so life continues on for Orogen, just ex Silicon. And so the transaction, I think, it is really good because it allows shareholders to take a reward in an asset that came basically from nothing in 2020 to where it is today. And we get to continue on with the model that provided the benefit in the first place. It's kind of, as Brian Dalton says, it's the golden goose that lays the golden eggs, and we don't want to give up on that.
We'll talk about Brian in a minute. At 37 cents at the attribution value, what is the market cap of Orogen? And what do you get for that? What's it worth?
Pro forma basis, the company will be worth around 88 million. So included in with all the other assets that we've got, there will be a $10 million investment by Triple Flag. So they'll become a shareholder on the registry. The company, we're actually going to reduce the share count. We're going down to 59 million shares outstanding. Shareholders will be kept whole. Your percentage that you owned in Orogen prior will be the same as it is when you have with the new company. Only difference is that Triple Flag is now a new shareholder as well. So on a pro forma basis, it'll be 88 million, roughly $1.40 a share type thing. We're not exactly sure where that's going to end up once it comes trading. All the cash and all the other assets stay the same. 28 royalties, 7 option agreements, 5 projects. From a shareholder perspective, Altius Minerals will maintain their ownership in the company, so they'll be around 16 to 17%. Adrian Asset Management, Rick, your old shop at Sprott, they're going to hold a big chunk of shares too. Triple Flag will hold 11.4%. Management insiders will hold between 6 to 7%. So when it's all done, the 64% of the company will be held in very strong hands. And so I think it's a great setup, a great way to start a new company, cash flowing royalty, great opportunities in some of the emerging royalties that we've got, and a very stable company. The downside risk is exceptionally low.
do a little bit of sum of the parts. At $88 million, 20 is easy to account for because that's cash. Do you have a sense of what Ermitaño is worth?
I think it is between. Well, I mean, it's in the it's a little bit in the eye of the beholder. I do believe there's a basis based on the ounces that you see today in the production profile. You can easily say that there's probably $40 million dollars plus of value there, even $50 million dollars of value. I'm not sure if you saw the new announcement this morning by First Majestic, but they have expanded that Navidad winter vein zone significantly. And so it's got the same width and grade tenor as the central part of Ermitaño. And so, you know, they're adding a lot of ounces, or they could add a lot of ounces back to the existing resource. And so the mine life on that thing is going to be a lot longer than everybody initially thought. And so for us, that's a fantastic thing. So the value will go up on that. And then with respect to, there's probably about 4 emerging royalties, what I would place a pretty solid sort of 10 to 15 million dollars of value on. La Rica in Colombia is, I hope, will be the next big value creator in the company. It is one of these untested porphyry targets in the Andean porphyry belt. It has been around for 50 years undrilled, and so we're super excited about that. That's going to be drilled late this year or early next. And then there's a host of new royalties in Nevada that are being drilled by majors, being drilled by juniors, and they have good chances of creating tremendous value. Some will be Ermitaño sized and some could be even bigger. So there's lots of variety within the portfolio, but there's a couple of key things I think that are really going to drive value. And so when you take sort of a $40-50 million look at Ermitaño, you take the cash, then the rest of the business looks, you know, it looks like good value to me. I mean, prospect generators, you can, you know, give a range of values, but we've got some very tangible assets in the company to base this value on. And so we're proud to stand behind that.
And you have a team that succeeded twice.
Absolutely.
Very important. It isn't merely
Yes.
that you've worked the model. You've worked the model and turned the model into money twice. Paddy, to the extent that our attendees or prospective attendees are curious about participating in the ongoing success of Orogen, how do they find out more? Who do they contact?
They
How do they
can
contact the person?
contact me. Please call me.
Buck
So
stops with the boss. How do they do that? What's your phone number? What's your email address?
email Paddy, that's Paddy, is the Irish version, at originroyalties.com. Phone number 604-816-2852.
Buck stops at the top, ladies and gentlemen. Call the boss. Paddy, thank you for 2 decades of toil on behalf of shareholders, myself
Thank you,
in
Rick.
particular. Thank you, too, for your sponsorship and support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. I look
Looking forward to
forward
it.
to hosting you in Boca Raton.
Thank you.